Give us a second.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Public Art Commission January 18, 2024 meeting to order. Roll call. Commissioner Taylor,
Present.
Commissioner Miyagi,
Here.
Commissioner Waltuck,
Here.
Commissioner Gordon,
Present.
Senior Shin present. Do we have any agenda changes, additions, or deletions?
No, we do not, but I did want to note one change since our agenda was published is our council liaison is no longer Councilmember Tanaka, but Councilmember Burke, who is joined us in person this evening.
Oh, great.
Do we have any public comments?
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to an item not on the agenda, please raise your hand.
Nobody's in attendance.
I guess the first action item, approval of minutes from November 29, 2023 for the Public Art Commission special meeting.
So
Uh,
moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I'm gonna make a roll call. Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
and yes for me as well. Do we have any city official comments?
Well, we always have a couple at least. So I also want to note that we are joined this evening by Amanda Demmel, who is the new Assistant Director for CSD overseeing the arts and sciences. Thank you for coming. Welcome. And I just wanted to show a couple of pictures from our retreat last week. It was a wild ride through a lot of different conversations, and we were really energized to get back in the office on Tuesday morning. And your February agenda is going to be packed with requests. So based on the work we've set forth for 2024. So we're really looking forward to it. And thank you all for your attendance and great conversation. And then the other item I just wanted to bring up is that the Artists in Residence call is live. It is open. The deadline is February 2nd. We had a very well attended artist meeting for any candidates who had any questions. So that was really exciting. There's a lot of interest out there, but trying to get people to apply, it's always helpful if there are multiple points of contact. So any assistance you might lend on sending that link out, reposting from our social media, that would be really appreciated. And that's it.
Action items. First action item, public art at Fire Station 4.
Yes, so we have Joe Sachs from our public art team and Stephen Galloway joining us to make a presentation about the public art process thus far, and then Stephen Galloway will walk you all through the proposal. So Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Joe Sachs, and I'm the project manager for the public art portion of the new Fire Station 4. I wanted to just refresh everyone's memory about the background for this project. So in October of 2022, BRW architects who are designing the building met with public art staff regarding the incorporation of artwork into the project design and described the potential public art opportunities. Later that month, the PAC approved funds in the amount of $100,000 plus a 10% contingency. And then in November of that year, we held a artist selection panel. Next, please. And this is the composition of the artist selection panel, which included the deputy chief of the fire department, some local arts professionals, representation from the Department of Public Works and the architect and our own Commissioner Waltuck. The panel reviewed 20 artists and evaluated them based on this artist selection criteria, artistic excellence and strength of their previous work, whether their previous projects were well integrated into the site, and considered the exterior opportunities for public art on this new building. And next, the panel selected Stephen Galloway, who's with us tonight. And since Stephen was then approved in March of 2023 for the project, he has come down multiple times to Palo Alto from San Francisco and visited the site, visited the adjacent park and neighborhood, met with the design team. In July of last year, I attended the MSC open house along with representatives of Public Works, and we solicited feedback from the public who came by, and we showed them models and more design details of the architect's plan for the new fire station, and asked them questions to try and solicit feedback from them. In July of last year, we held an in-person meeting for Stephen to introduce himself to the community and get feedback from them about how they felt about the new fire station and about the surrounding community and neighborhood. And then in August of last year, Stephen and I met with the fire department at Fire Station for the existing fire station and had a really detailed and lengthy discussion with them and learned about their relationship with the community and their roles. And since then, Stephen's been working on developing a design proposal, which he'd like to show you now. So I'd like to introduce you all to Stephen Galloway. Take it away.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to bring you up to speed with where we are with the project. But I also want to step backwards a second and just say thank you for approving me when you all gave the approval, because I was really happy to do the project. Gives me, a bunch of different challenges. Every project is a little bit different. It's a chance for me to work with some new materials. And also, I didn't know anything about fire stations and the work of firefighters before I started this. So I had to learn an awful lot about that. I come from a service background. I come from a military family. So I have an idea about what service members' lives are like, but learning the specifics of this was really great. And then also spending time both in that part of Palo Alto, walking around those neighborhoods quite a bit, and then walking around larger Palo Alto. I've been around here for a long time, since I moved to this part of California in the 80s. So I've been here for a long time. And of course, I've been here a lot. But this gave me an opportunity to look at Palo Alto in a very particular way, with a sort of pointed curiosity. So that's been great. So I'd like to give you an update about where we are now. I'll start by just quickly running through the visuals so you've got those in your mind, and then let you know a little bit about what's going on in my head as far as inspiration and how I came up with this idea. This, just to remind you all and remind everybody else, that this is what the new fire station is going to look like according to the architects. And it's located on the corner, just on the edge of Mitchell Park, with East Meadow running down one side and then Middlefield Drive running across the corner. So it's right on a corner. There's a school nearby. There's a lot of people who drive around this corner, drive on one boulevard or the other, and a lot of people who walk, and all those pedestrians walking, especially the kids and everything, they congregate on that corner for the light. So they're always, there's oftentimes like a little crowd of people there as well. So that was part of understanding about, okay, so where are we going to make art? Who are we serving when we do this? Next one, please, Nadia. So this is a rough sort of computer design picture of the station with an idea of the artwork in place on that front white tower. You can see these panels that have imagery on them. that just sort of wrap around the corner of this tower that sort of sets forward. It's a two-story element in the architecture. It's a different texture than the rest of the building. It's pretty prominent. It has high impact. Next slide, please. And this is the overall layout of the composition. The composition is divided up into these panels that are 1 foot by 6 foot. And this is a graphic artwork that's based upon a valley oak, looking up into the canopy and seeing some of the shapes and colors and things there. And just to give you an idea, the panels are separated by half their width. So a 1 foot wide panel, and then a 6-inch gap, and then a 1 foot wide panel, so that your mind has to sort of put that together. Here you can see how the artwork wraps around the corner of the tower. It becomes visible and sort of is prominent to people walking from either direction or driving from either direction, and it leads you around the corner no matter which direction you're going. You can also see how the artwork sort of engages the roof line of that extra wing, that 1-story wing on, I think it's on the Meadow Street side that juts out there. So this would be the general appearance of the artwork during the daytime. And then this is the beginning of me trying to work out the lighting at night. And so we've already started, Joe and I have been already talking with a lighting designer about how to do this. The idea being that the artwork would have a glow on an otherwise, pretty subduedly lit building during the nighttime. So it would glow a little bit brighter than the building. So a very gentle wash of light on the front, but a backlighting coming out around the edges of all these panels. So the whole thing kind of glows and floats out front a little bit, because the artwork itself is, it's made with porcelain enamel on steel. We can go to the next slide, Nadia, thanks. So it's porcelain enamel on steel. So that's opaque. No light can, it's not like you can light that up from behind. So it's rather that I'm just trying to give the whole thing a glow, and then we've got to pop a little bit of light on the front so you can see what it is. And I'll get to why it is that I want this to look that way in just a second. This shows just 3 different angles of these panels. One that's just a straight panel, the next one showing this glow that I'm talking about a little bit. And then the last one on the far right shows that these enamel panels, these steel panels, have an edge or a return all the way around the side, which is 1 inch. So they'll have, they're very rigid and super solid things. And the surface, which will look like this is a detail of the artwork, just kind of showing you the graphic style that I'm working in here. That'll be baked on the surface of this steel. So it's an enamel, it's a porcelain enamel ink. It's almost like a glaze on ceramic that gets printed on there, and then it goes into a kiln. It's all fired. It's vitreous, so it just becomes completely solid and permanent on that steel. And especially up above head height on a building like that, it's got a very, very long life. Certainly, it's life of the building material. Okay, and then that brings us a little bit to the idea itself. The tree, as I said, it was a valley oak, and my work starts originally with photography. This is one photograph of this great big old rangy valley oak that is out in the Pearson and Rastradero Preserve. I photographed a lot of trees throughout Palo Alto. Palo Alto, of course, it's a city of trees. And this is one of my major inspirations. I mean, it's called Palo Alto. So you kind of can't get away from it. And one thing that I found is the further west I went in town, and as I got out to some of these more open areas, that the trees have a kind of wildness that the trees that are really being taken care of by the city arborists don't have. They're a lot of times very, very sculpted, and this just gets a lot more dynamic, which the idea of looking up into trees and drawing yourself into that canopy visually, I think becomes much more exciting. But the artwork that I decided on is a piece I'm titling Commonweal. And I think we can go to the next slide safely. It gets us back to this one. So we've got that in mind. And it's got a number of different inspirations. The first one is thinking about the fire station's public role. Its public role in the community, in that it is, sort of an element of the community's well-being, of their identity, and their social, sort of a social civic cohesion. And the oak tree is a really symbolic kind of tree for carrying symbolism around health and around strength and around resilience. So I thought that these things were a really good mix right there. The second thing that I was thinking about is the context of the fire station, in that, my artwork, I oftentimes really want it to be about place so that people know where they are. And as I mentioned, I was looking at trees right away because it's Palo Alto and there's so many trees everywhere. You can't really look at much else. There's trees and houses. And so the tree motif made sense that way, but I feel like the tree motif also kind of connects the fire station as an edifice with the park that it's in, so that it's still part of that whole idea of a natural open space. The third big element for me and why this looks the way that it does has to do with the station's architecture. And I was inspired by discussions we had with the designers of the building, and them talking about a lot of how they had heard from the community what was important to the community architecturally, and how they designed this building thinking about an appreciation for scale and massing that was going to work for the functionality of the building, but that was also not going to be too obtrusive in the area, but also architecturally appropriate for that particular neighborhood. And that sort of modernist approach that they have going on in the building, with these really strong planes everywhere, backing off and coming forward. I wanted to be able to work with that. You'll also notice that the building, a lot of the building is clad with these panels that happen to be 1 foot by 6 foot. And so what they are is they're a ceramic building envelope system that is got baked into it is sort of a wood grain. So that's going to be all around this building. And I wanted to sort of just pick up a little thread from that. It's like wearing a little bit of blue that pulls out the blue in my eyes or something like that. Just you might not think about it, but it all fits in. So that's a lot of how I got this design formally. But then the last thing, and this is especially true with the lighting effect that I'm looking for at night, which is the idea that the artwork might be able to be a beacon in there all night long, because the building needs to be activated for the nighttime. People have to know that it's still alive during the nighttime. Now, there are going to be some illuminated signs. There's also a garage that's going to have lights on, that's going to have fire engines in it. You can see it's all that blue stuff is glass, and there's going to be fire engines right there. So there's going to be a lot of red there, and stuff that really talks about emergency access. And I wanted to temper that a little bit, create something that was a little bit more welcoming, a little bit more about safety. The first time I walked into the fire station, they had a little sign down at the bottom by the front door that talked about it being a safe refuge site where people could do one of the most radical things you can do, which is to give up a baby. And that at that building, there's a crew of people who will step in and take care of something, at that point of crisis. And so I really wanted to sort of carry that sort of that sense of safety in the artwork, which is why I'm trying to get the lighting just right for it. So those are some of the different inspirations. And as Joe pointed out, we've had a bunch of meetings along the way. So I certainly learned a lot about what this was all about from firefighters. And, we call them firefighters, But it's funny because firefighting is like this really small part of their job. And I learned that there's so many other things that they're doing. And the amount of firefighting they do has been drastically reduced since we were kids. So they've got a really complex job and learned a lot more also just about the history and sort of what it feels like to be a firefighter in Palo Alto from the deputy chief who's been involved for a long, long time. And then also from the design team who designed the building, and then also the community meeting that we had at the library, which was before I had designed anything. So I got to hear so much from people about what they loved about Palo Alto and what they thought about and what they thought art could be about too, which was also, gave me all kinds of stuff to start with. So it's informed by all those things. So I hope that gives you all a pretty clear picture, but I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have at this point.
If there are any members of the public who wish to speak to this item, please raise your hand.
No. Excuse me, no people in attendance.
So we're ready for any questions.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Thank you, Stephen, for presenting this. This is a great idea. When I first saw this, I just looked at the picture. I didn't read anything about it. And I said, this is really cool.
Oh, I'm glad it
And-
started
and,
there.
when I looked at the picture, I thought, is this like an oak that was on the property and was removed
Mhm.
for the building to go in? But apparently it's not.
Right.
But I think it's really good because it gives a sense of the neighborhood and of Palo Alto with the tree. And I think that's a really, really good thing. And it's well integrated into the building. It doesn't look like somebody walked by and stuck something on and kept walking. That's my biggest complaint about public art is stick on public art. So this is well integrated. Couple of questions, and you answered a couple already. It's opaque. Is that second floor? Is that anything behind there? Is it a stairwell or anything
So
behind there?
behind that corner there on the second floor, it's kind of a service room for the station. And it includes, there's a lot of mechanicals up there. And so it's going to be very easy for them to access any sort of electrical or electronics that we have to include for the lighting. If that's where you're going with
Yeah,
that.
that's good. Until you explained that it was opaque, I thought maybe there could be some lighting from that room at night
Mhm.
to backlight
Right.
it and do that, but apparently not. So
Yeah, and as planned, that was never meant to have any windows or anything up
Okay.
there.
And then another question is maintenance, and apparently this is pretty low maintenance, is taking a hose and washing it off once in a while.
That is exactly it. A hose washing off cobwebs or anything like that would be completely appropriate. Joe and I have had a meeting, our initial meeting with a lighting designer. And what our likely solution is behind these is LEDs inside of an acrylic tube. That's all created for exterior grade situations. It'll withstand rain, it'll withstand washing, things like that. And you can just wash this stuff off, if you needed to, if there was an errant bird, perhaps, defacing artwork in your town, which I'm sure never happens here, but, a soft cloth and soapy
Okay.
water.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like this, and like I said earlier, I think the tree in that window, those panels, is like it's a reflection of a tree that would be on the property, and I think that's really a good thing. And then anybody walking by can look up at that and say, it's a great thing for the neighborhood.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We should point out that that tree, the source material for this is in the fire station service area too.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's in the city of Palo Alto city limits. It's just the far west edge of Palo Alto. And certainly, even like wildfire or anything like that Palo Alto fire is they're the first people out there.
Oh, and then the other thing, And I have a very good friend that's a captain in the San Jose Fire Department. And so, and as you were saying, they do much more
Yeah.
than just firefighting. And I just in awe of firefighters because they never know what they're going to find out when they go out.
Yeah. That was clear when I spoke with them. They're also really great at telling stories. You know, they got a lot of stories.
Thank you. I also am in agreement that it's a beautiful piece and I'm excited to see it come to fruition. I had a couple questions. What's the height from the ground to the bottom of the panels?
The line at the window, I think you can see that horizontal line going across the tower. That is at, I think it's 10 feet. The roof line is 24. Exactly where to put it in there, you know, whether it ends up a foot lower or a foot higher, that's something we're still working on, exactly where that is. And then that also ends up changing how it integrates with that roof line on the side. So this is where we're at right now, but I think it could drop a little bit more. It could raise up a little. Actually, it right in there. You know, we're close.
Can you go back to the design?
If you go back, I think go back
Like it's too much.
there. It
So
went one forward.
A process question, because when I was looking at it at
No,
first, I was like.
one Nadia
Right.
the other direction. One more. There we go.
It
Does that help?
reminds me of paint my numbers, and I think it's really fun. It's very playful, and I think there's a lot of dimensionality, and obviously it'd be fun to see it really up close, but then, you know, they might not be able to see it as close as you want. So my question is, can you just tell us a little bit about the process of how you developed this design?
Yeah.
And kind of, you know, your thoughts about people being able to see it from far away, up close and.
Right. So when you stand back from this, you're immediately going to feel like it's photographic. And so then your understanding of what it is changes a lot as you approach the artwork. And when you get up there, it's a whole different thing than what you originally thought. And I really like that process. So I've been working in this graphic way for, I don't know, at least a half dozen projects. And the reason why I started working, so I'm a trained photographer. That's where I come from in my own artwork. And the reason why I started working this way and started moving in this more graphic way is because of scalability. As I make larger and larger artworks, straight photography won't work because you just lose all your resolution. Or at least my photography won't work because I'm way into detail. And so other people's will work because they like it breaking down. But so I've started working this way and developing this. And this, you know, I'm using computer software to help me transform a photograph into these flat blocks of color. And then each flat block in this particular case has a little thin black line around it that ends up defining it a little bit more, giving it a little bit more, like you said, it's got some dimension in there. So these color blocks stand apart from each other and don't just mesh into each other quite a bit. And it's also, for me, it's a tiny nod to the way stained glass is made. And I've done a lot of these works in glass. So that's using a really high-tech, super modern industrial process to make public art that still refers back to this, centuries old way of making art. I like that quite a bit. So those are some of the things for me that go into it.
I also really love what you've done, and this is my neighborhood, so I
Excellent.
appreciate that. And I also spend a lot of time in a Rossiter Preserve, so I like kind of combining the
connection.
two. Yeah, that's nice. I also think it looks, well, I appreciate the kind of echoing the ratios of the panels. I think that really works for that building. And when you first showed it, it looked almost like the building was perforated, like you could see through it, which is
Yeah.
also a really nice aspect of lightening that building, which is already, with the glass and everything, keeps it very light. I have a question about the
the kind of illumination. So I hear you wanting to activate it at night and I agree with that. I think that's a great idea. From what I know, when you light something around it, it makes the inside darker. And I heard you say you were gonna illuminate that. So how, I'm just looking at the architecture, like how can a light be shown on the surface of that?
Okay, so like I said, we're still in the early stages of working with a lighting designer on this.
Okay.
And their first suggestions are that we take and they showed us some different models of lamps that will go from the eaves, just really fine little lines that come down and then have a strip that provides illumination that'll be pointed back at that wall. So it'll be out in front of the work and above it, and then shine down to cover. So, sort of coming back the couple of feet towards the artwork.
So what is the purpose really of the LEDs underneath the panel?
That's what creates the glow.
Okay, so you want the glow and
Right.
the
Yeah,
illumination
and
of that.
just enough illumination for the
Okay.
artwork to be activated, but the glow to really sort of let it float up in the air
Mhm.
at night.
Mhm. Okay. One other thing that I just liked, and the storyteller in me, loves the idea of a tree, like you said, the firefighters doing all these different things and the kind of idea of the little kitten stuck up in the tree and the firefighters rescuing it. I think that's a nice little nod.
I love the story.
Yeah.
The design is too far along to include a kitten.
No, to me-
Just saying.
No, to me, it's just the idea. It just has the
Right, I
idea
know.
that. Yeah, so thank you.
A kitten meowing? No.
And
Just
a
kidding.
panicked kitten.
A hologram. Projected
Yes, yeah.
I don't have much to add because I think that everyone's done a great job asking questions. I love your approach to the lighting. What is, so, it can't be too lit, but it's got to be perfectly glowing. And so that is something I'm sure you're working on. And then is there any competition off to the left if you're facing the panels on the front? Like you said, is that engine room going to be lit as well? And how much light goes in there?
Yeah, and that we have to balance this out with all the other ambient light that might be on at night.
Okay.
There's, right in the front there,
Mhm.
away from that engine bay, I'll get to the engine bay in just a second, but in the front, all the lighting is really low.
Mm.
So that's not there's not a whole lot of competition there.
Good.
We also have to consider how much is the artwork going to end up being lit by the ambient light? Are we already going to get a boost from the ambient light? This is why we're talking to a lighting consultant, is because it's complicated.
It is.
And that front door where the engines are, I have an impression in my mind about what it's likely to be like, but we haven't sat down and weighed it in and had somebody to sort of do the numbers on how brilliant that is. The white tower pops out about 8 feet from there. So it's hard for that light to come out that direction. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm explaining myself
It
well.
was 8 feet.
Yeah, I think it comes out
That
8
is pretty
feet on
deep.
that side. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And thank you for taking so much time to really look into the lighting because I think it's important.
And like I said, we're just at the beginning.
Okay, great. And then I wondered with the baked on, enamel baked on steel, this is really cool. And that's also what the building is, the faux wood.
The building
that
is similar. It's
similar,
not
but
exactly the
same?
same kind of material.
Okay. And I take it there's not a lot of fading that happens on these
No,
panels?
there's not.
Oh, so
There's
that's
not.
really great.
The signs on the highway are porcelain enamel baked on steel.
That's kind of interesting. Well, that's
So,
cool.
right, exactly. And so I'm working with a company that's taken that technology and really pushed it. And they've been fabricating artwork for public art projects all around the country. And so,
Well, that is wonderful. And I love the mix of the old and the new. I don't know how old that tree is, but it's older than the way you're creating the artwork, right? So you have a new approach to seeing the tree in a different way, and it's just really
restive to look at, interesting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have one more of a technical question.
Sure.
And I appreciate your saying that this is really easy to maintain. My question is related to this 18 enamel coated steel. Where is it fabricated? And also, like, if you have sort of accidents, things get thrown and gets chipped or whatnot, how difficult would it be to repair for unusual damages like that?
Both great questions. So as far as the damage goes, a small bit of damage, something gets chipped or something like that, that can be sort of sealed up so that there won't be rust or anything happening in there. If something major happens to a panel, it can be remanufactured without much difficulty. So this work will all exist digitally. And so it's just a matter of working again with the fabricator to ensure that all of our color is still in the same place or compensate for any changes that may have happened in color in order to be able to remanufacture a piece. So that is completely doable. And the fabrication process will all take place in California, up in Santa Rosa.
Nice.
Got it. And one of the reasons why I asked this question is because our team is really responsible for a lot of the maintenance work.
Right.
And the first 5 years, no problem. Everyone's still around. And then it's the next 5 years, and then something happens. And how do you sort of rebuild this, put it together, contacting the folks that put it together, try to get the right shade of green and whatnot. So we're going to have all that good work digitally stored somewhere.
Right.
So if we need to access it, we can.
So as a standard part of these public art projects,
Mhm.
I put together a maintenance document that has that kind of information in it.
Uh-huh.
I think for a project like this, it's so singular and site specific. I think that if the city wants to archive a copy of the digital files used for production, I don't have any problem with that.
Thank you. I
Mhm.
think it's a beautiful piece of
Thank you.
artwork, and I think that people in the neighborhood would really come to love it.
Excellent, because I
Thank
want them to love their fire station too.
One other question, how is the piece adhered to the wall?
How is it adhere to the wall? Okay, so this is great. I love all the technical questions. So as a standard rule, these panels are held to the wall very simply with what is essentially L-shaped brackets on the wall, and then that little lip that I told you about sits right on them. Now, these we're working with both the fabricator of the artwork and an engineer who's on contract with this to amend that system and sort of customize it a little bit so that it will hold the artwork, not so that it's right up against the wall like that, but rather it's held out here so that we get the light spillage from lights that are held behind the panels.
But it's not this gravity that's holding it, right?
Well, no,
I know,
it'll be
so.
screwed, it'll be attached to those brackets will be attached to through the wall, through the stucco wall, and into blocking that's inside the wall. So this is all stuff that we've worked out with the architects and working with the engineers and things like that. And they have, they have a standard way of engineering this stuff at the company that I'm working with, and that'll be amended a little bit for the actual sort of wall ceiling system, the building envelope that's being designed for this. And to meet our needs as far as the lighting and the sort of weird installation I'm asking them to do. It's not that hard. It's pretty simple, and it's pretty tight as well. And because they're parallel to the building, there's not a big problem with them, blowing around or anything like that.
A quick question, where are the living quarters in that, in the building?
Do you want to go back to that last slide? Oh, actually, I think we have to go all the way back to the first slide, Nadia, if it's possible.
We'll say you're in good hands having a public art piece at the fire department. I'm sure you know that. They have a great hose too. I'm sure that's a hot wash.
I thought you also meant that nobody messes with the fire department. Okay, perfect. So you can see that as you look down Middlefield Road there, there's another wing right where the cursor is there, back there. That's the front of their living area. So that's a common area, I believe, where their kitchen is and things like that. And then they've got rooms behind there that they're going to be living in. That'll be their living quarters. So it's really a whole other wing in the building. The wing that juts out over here on the Middlefield side, I'm sorry, on the Meadow side, where the big number 4 is, that's a big community area where they do trainings with the community and things like that. The white tower that is really sort of the entrance to this whole place, and it sort of stands out from the whole building, the one where the artwork's going to be, that's actually the station chief's office. So they're in there behind that window.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, one other question. I'm just trying to look at this rendering and I think I'm being thrown off by the current building and the renderings of the new building. So Middlefield is there, right? Like.
Right, you can see,
right?
it says Middlefield
Yeah.
right over there.
Is that right, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, so what's confusing to me is can you go, yeah, right. So the area where there's a person in a wheelchair, you see that?
Yes.
Is that a side, because and this is where I know this is not public art, but that it, okay. Oh, so they're really expanding that, or it looks, at least it looks large.
Little plaza here.
Oh, got it, okay.
Just this huge overgrown tree that sort of covers everything.
Okay.
And so they're clearing that out and they're coming up with brand new landscaping all in here.
Okay,
This is also an architect's rendering.
right.
And so I would have to defer to the architect.
Probably is.
I would defer to the architect as to exactly what they're emphasizing in here.
And the reason I'm asking you, because like if you're driving, or you're right where that gentleman is who's walking up, it looks like stairs, you'll be able to see your piece probably at a nice
Yes.
distance.
Yeah, so if you're on Meadow, you can see the piece that comes around this side. And as you turn the corner and you're going down Middlefield, you'll see the piece on the face.
Wonderful, thanks.
Just
Yeah.
share a couple of thoughts. When you were talking about kind of the natural congregation of people that is on the corner and that will help people see and engage with it, it made me think about that you're making that tree famous. And, we have one famous tree here already. We have others that actually are deserving of notoriety and have been identified. But there's an opportunity to kind of have a reciprocal promotion there, of a placard there showing where the tree is at a Rastro Preserve, and conversely, where that tree is. And I get, with it's just a little marketing, but people love that kind of stuff. Say, oh, I went and saw the tree at the fire station. And I think it just could really help there.
I'm happy to identify which tree it is. I get the feeling that this is the kind of tree that would attract a group of teenagers at night. And that it has that sort of iconic feel, because it does provide this sort of whole shelter beneath it. So I think that it may already be famous.
Okay, so the other thing is, you're talking about firemen and stories, and I'll just say that fire departments and police departments have kind of friendly competition with each other. There's always kind of who's better, firemen or policemen. And so a couple of years ago, I introduced a friend who had been a fire captain in San Jose to our former fire chief. And the fire guy said, okay, here's a question. What do firemen and policemen actually have in common? The answer is they both want to be firemen.
That's pretty great. I'll keep that under my hat. That's pretty great. I feel like there's probably a sort of inverse of that joke that's told in other
Yeah, I'm sure there
circumstances. Yeah.
Well, thank you for everyone's constructive feedback. And thank you for patiently answering all of our various different questions. Do we have a motion for the approval of artwork by Stephen Galloway for Fire Station 4?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm gonna make a roll.
I second that motion.
Um, roll call. Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Waltuck,
Yes.
and yes for me as well. We're really looking forward to this beautiful artwork. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you all. I really had a good time meeting you all and everything. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Excellent. Okay. Back to work. It was nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you.
And the next action item is adoption of priorities for 2024. I believe we were looking at the language during the retreat. So maybe if we can take a look at that and finalize it and for adoption.
I believe we have a slide ready with a couple of the amendments in green. It doesn't show up as much on the big
Okay.
screen, but I think you can pick it out. There was discussion about adding engagement and empathy in that first priority. Can you pick out the difference in the
Okay.
color? It's a little more
Yep.
subtle on the big screen. Okay.
That encourages engagement.
You think we should drop empathy down to social justice priority?
I like that. Yeah.
So you would say inclusion, comma, empathy and celebration. Or is that just too much?
Inclusion.
Everyone. Sorry, I should be talking into the microphone.
Will continue.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Develop public art projects that will continue to advance ethnic and cultural inclusion. That will advance. How about that will continue to advance empathy.
Yeah.
And right, so that empathy, ethnic and cultural inclusion and celebration.
And social.
Art and engagement and play similar.
And engagement, and so, yeah, so, and then also grammatically, it feels a little bit weird, because it makes it feel like play should be, you should turn it into a gerund or something like playing, like.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Well,
So,
engagement could be a lot of different things, including play, but
Yeah.
I think at one point we called out play because there
Yeah.
was so much.
yeah,
We're still.
But I think could take it, if we're adding engagement, we could take out play.
yeah,
If we're adding engagement, we could take out play. Otherwise, it's getting a little cumbersome, I think, with.
agree.
Agree. So which one would you rather have, engagement or play?
I do think that engagement includes play more than play includes engagement. So I think if we want something broader, that we should take out play.
I like your suggestion. And to advance empathy, ethnic and cultural inclusion and celebration. I think that works for the second one as well.
And we decided to keep the plans, the list of plans in the third.
Yep.
I think that for the second one, we could take out ethnic because if we have empathy, comma, cultural inclusion and celebration, I think the cultural inclusion also gets at the ethnic aspect.
So Lisa, actually, I think we put in the word ethnic specifically because of all the various different ethnic conflicts. I think when this was put together, when we reviewed this previously, because cultural seems a little more boundary amorphous, whereas people in the name of ethnic whatever, to sort of have caused a lot of fighting and animosity. So that was sort of the reason why we put in, and in terms of the climate that Lauren had alluded to in this year, I mean, this is a big year of fighting globally, domestically. So I would think it would be an important aspect to try to highlight and try to protect.
I understand where you're coming from. I will say, I think the question I think we should be thinking about is like what projects we're doing and how they are fitting into that. Because the reason I'm concerned also about that word, I think social, racial, and gender are a little more overarching. Whereas with ethnic, I mean, I don't know, I get where I get the reason why the word is important, but I also have to say that our public art projects are not specifically about ethnic.
But-
And it's a tricky thing without getting into too much detail, but I can't think of a project that we're doing that specifically
But-
to advance for ethnic and cultural inclusion. It's more just do you guys, it's a little, I'm having a
Fries?
hard time.
Yeah, I'm going
Sorry,
back to the
fries.
Fry's site too,
Fries.
where we're really trying to emphasize and showcase the ethnicity of the previous owner
historic
and workers
building.
on that site.
Right, so I guess the question is, are we leaving, by saying that though, are we potentially leaving a group out? Or no, that's where I'm kind of, I just want us to make sure we're all on the same page about what that exactly ethnic and cultural inclusion mean. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, and I'm
That's
glad
fair.
because maybe that will make us more aware. I think really we try to do the best at that and think about,
Opportunistically.
because Palo Alto is home to so many, we really do try to
Right.
reach out to.
And maybe
fallback.
not advance, maybe support.
Well, I mean,
Because we're not doing, the public art consultants for that particular project found an artist to fit that. We didn't as the art commission, we're supporting though. Right?
Because.
The Public Art Commission did give direction to the consultants that the artwork should reflect the history of that site and the cannery and the importance of
Oh, I see what you
Thomas
mean.
Foon Chu on the Ventura neighborhood.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I mean, both ethnic, cultural, and celebration certainly got picked up in that project. So if you say, show me a project where we highlighted these key elements directionally to the artists, that was, I think, a case in point. Now, I'm not saying we highlight all these elements with every single project. For instance, the project that we just looked at, I don't think that's really a social justice priority project that we would point to. But, it does promote, community building, right? As our council member mentioned, hey, maybe we direct them to finding the real tree that this piece of artwork is modeled after, and that's community engagement and playing. So not every piece of artwork is going to fit every one of these objectives, but I think to the extent we can, this is something we can point to.
Okay. I will. That's fine. Thank you for clarifying.
And I appreciate you bringing that up because it just heightens our awareness when we are looking at different projects and trying to, enlighten the panels who are hiring the artists. Of course, we're going to bring up these 3 priorities. So thank you, Nia, for bringing that to our attention.
Do we have any more questions, comments, or discussions?
I'm wondering too, just thinking about that with social, maybe, I don't know if there's like the historical, something historical, like the historical. And I might be going into too much detail, but something about the history of Palo Alto or, I mean, we know it's Palo Alto, but I'm wondering maybe that might help kind of. But I'm just putting it out there. Yeah, of the history of Palo, something like that, but we can leave it at it. I'm not gonna go into too much.
Thank you, Nia. So just to kind of put it in the context, the Public Art Commission, obviously, our charter is related to public art. There is, I think, the Historical Commission.
There's a Historic Resources Board.
Yeah, and they focus more on that aspect of Palo Alto. So we'll defer to them on that.
One thing to also, you might want to consider is that every project we do is grounded in the history of the site.
Yeah.
So in that way, every project sort of grows from that point. So
Yeah.
that's kind of baked into the public art process and best practices in public art.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot of commissions that are set up for preservation and protecting the identity of Palo Alto, and I'm not sure we want to box ourselves in the public art space as well. Any other questions, comments? If not, do I have a motion for the adoption of these priorities for 2024? Am I making a motion?
Sure. I would like to move that we adopt these 3 priorities for our work plan, I guess, and all of our work for year of 2024.
And I will second that motion. Can I roll call this? Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Walton,
Yes.
and yes for me as well. Do we have any public letters?
There were none this time around.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any commissioner questions, comments, announcements for future agenda items?
I have a future agenda item that we may, or maybe form a subcommittee, since we're going to be expanded back out to 7. And I know Elise does some training with the new people coming on, but maybe on the commission, we should have some sort of a mentorship for the new people coming on to get them up to speed quicker. And I know 2 commissioners are up for reappointment this time, and then 3 next year. And I think there's at least 2 of us that are termed out. Okay, so there's 3 of us that are termed out. I think it's Lauren, Nia, and myself that are termed out. But
I term out in 25.
yeah, so that's the next year. So
Yeah.
that's 3 of us. So there's going to be 4 or 3 or 4 new members plus the 2. So I think we need to have some sort of, I don't know what you want to call a succession plan or something moving forward with these commissioners. And I think, I know that the city council does interview the applicants for the position, but is there a way that maybe we can have a couple of questions from the commission for these new commissioners or these applicants, other than more general questions from the city council?
Yeah, I think the council might welcome suggestions on questions, and then they individually, would elect to use them, but it would in any way help them think about good questions to ask. I think that'd be useful.
Can I ask you, you just mentioned a something that this is probably is not an idea probably that people are gonna like, but I'm just gonna ask anyways. Has there ever been thought of having a commissioner, like a current commissioner, like on the panel for? Because sometimes I do feel like the council doesn't really know always what the commission
Yeah,
does. No
and
offense,
there's truth to that. In a range of commissions because council members come on from when they start in the council. Some have gone through city processes for a long time and understand the kind of the breadth, and others who kind of came because they had a given focus area, and then we're all suddenly in the position of not only appointing people with domain expertise of different sorts, but making decisions on things we maybe didn't have a background in. So that's a dilemma. I hadn't thought about how the council might leverage the insights of different commissions and commissioners in helping inform their selection. And the way you described it too, well, it could be in two ways. That basically, in a way, the commission, the way that Ben was talking about is how can the commissions kind of mentor councils in a selection criteria versus then there's another step of whether they defer any of the or share the actual selection of individuals. I need to think through that second one, but the first one, I think that's a good idea.
His could help.
More broadly even than
Just having
our
the
commission.
questions.
I was on the interview panel for the assistant director with Amanda, and we always had a set questions. Every person, there was no questions other than was that you could ask. And maybe something along that lines would be, instead of having random questions, coming from
Personally, I kind of like more of a hybrid and because some of the questions that are most valuable are in response
Mhm.
to what you've heard and they're just on the fly.
Mhm.
But there's also merit to kind of not only, some people love to have the exact same questions asked of every group. And I kind of personally value a hybrid of those
And
approaches.
I agree with you. I felt constrained by having to ask the same question to 5 or 6 different applicants. And then their responses would generate questions that you could have of them, but you couldn't ask those questions. So there was more of a give and take in the questioning. I think it would be very helpful.
I agree.
Well, we're very excited that the commission size is going to be restored back to 7. I think from the retreat we've been talking about going back to the municipal codes to look at the origin authorization of the and the responsibilities set forth in the rules for the commission and the individual commissioners' responsibilities. And I think that will be a good baseline for training. And I certainly think that, if it would be invaluable to have alumni network and also, pair up mentors or onboarding coaches if appropriate, and people can volunteer their time. I would be happy to participate as well.
That's great to know. Good suggestions. Thank you.
On that note, any other comments or announcements? If not, meeting adjourned.